courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC podcast, episode number 384. Andrew with you once again. I am Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. My co-host and fellow team member is Derek. You know him in the forum as D43, and he is D4384 on Twitter.
Happy to be here again. I saw that you picked up College Slam.
I did. PC.
And did you get a chance to install that and, number one, play it? But number two, also, did it work?
Oh, it did. It did. It's always nice when I buy something from eBay and it works, because I've had that experience before. With which one was it? Oh, Slam and Jam for the PlayStation. I wasn't able to get that working, and the seller didn't want to refund it because he insisted that it was working, and I just gave up because it was going to cost me more to send it back than it would have to just keep it and see if I can repair the disc maybe. But I actually do have Slam and Jam for PC on the way, which is nice. But yeah, College Hoops for PC, installed it, got it working. I do actually own it on Super Nintendo when I can play it with my converter, my SNES, my Super Nintendo Universal Adapter, rather, which allows me to play the NTSC games. And I had played it before on an emulator. It's interesting to play. It's kind of like when you play other college basketball games for the first time, like EA's or 2K's college basketball games, and they feel like the NBA games, but it's all the college branding, so it feels very different yet familiar at the same time. It's kind of cool. PC version has some more music than the Super Nintendo version, so it's, people said it was too derivative of NBA Jam, but I mean it's something different. It's college. There's a couple of new wrinkles, the timeouts, the substitutions. Obviously, you can edit the players. I think you can actually edit the players and get them to stay edited on the PC version. I haven't tested that yet. But, yeah, no, happy to add that to the collection.
Yeah, a couple things with College Slam. Having the NBA Jam gameplay, at the very least, just makes it a really solid playing game, right? So it's okay that it's very similar to NBA Jam gameplay-wise because, I mean, like I said, at the very least, it could be enjoyable.
Agreed.
Oh, no, bad thing. Number two, as far as, like, the saving of the names, I would think that for the PC version, there's always going to be a way that you can get around it if they don't have it as like a main part of the regular game. Like there's got to be like a file, like a save file that you can find, or a way to rig it or mod it or something like that. So I'd be interested to see if you could figure that out, because that was one thing that always frustrated me about the Super NES version. And number three, College Slam has one of the best opening soundtracks and menu system soundtracks of all time in basketball video games, in my opinion. So I am curious if the PC version is the same for the opening track.
I think it is. I think it is. And you're right, it's a great collegiate sound.
Oh, it's amazing. Just like Coach K College Basketball had a great soundtrack. Great collegiate sounding, immersive college basketball sounding soundtrack. But College Slam's great. It has that NBA Jam gameplay, but like we had talked about, it has the substitutions, and it still has that NBA. It has that fun gameplay factor in it. So yeah, I really enjoyed College Slam. It's one of my childhood favorites.
It's very solid. It plays just like the NBA Jams of the time, which is great. I have noticed that the PC version seems to repeat the phrase, what is it, about the thesis? Puts out a thesis on every basket, which I don't think happens on the Super Nintendo version from memory. It's a little bit more varied, so there might be some bugs with the commentary where it's Tim Kitzer obviously repeating that phrase a bit too much. I think it just keeps triggering that. Delivers the thesis. That's the one. Delivers the thesis, which is it gets a bit repetitive. But I'll have to play it a bit more. And yes, I would like to see if I can actually edit it and mod it, if possible, if the in-game editing doesn't stick, because I've always wanted to mod Jam Tournament Edition for PC, which I also have and have had for years, because I always wanted to replace Ron Harper with Michael Jordan and never found a way to do it. Even as a kid, my early foray into modding, I renamed a file Harper to Jordan. Amazingly, it didn't crash the game, but it didn't affect it either. Didn't replace Ron Harper at all in the game, and probably would have replaced Derek Harper too, for that matter. But also wanted to mention, I have been playing NBA Jam 2010 lately.
Really? Yeah, you and I played NBA Jam 2010 together.
Yeah.
And it just feels great. Like, it's just a really solid game.
It is, but I do have to say that because I've also been playing on Fire Edition, getting through Road Trip, getting to the point where I'm about 75% complete, just need to complete all the Platinum challenges against the Jam bots, which that's the toughest game of the Road Trip to finish that. But I took a bit of a break from that and just thought, I'll pop in Jam 2010 just to play that for a while and play through the classic campaign. And man, is that classic campaign dry compared to Road Trip. It really emphasizes how much Road Trip expanded on that idea. And they had the remix tour and the boss battles, and that was nice. But just playing through the classic campaign, because you're locked to a team, and I'm currently locked to the Knicks, and that Knicks team is not fun to play with, let me tell you, even with Starks and Ewing. But the big thing that really stood out to me with Jam 2010's gameplay is how much the real AI fixed things and improved things in On Fire Edition. And also, there's no tag mode, so you're locked to that player. You can't switch control between players, and I really miss that having from On Fire Edition.
Yeah, I can't stand that. I've told you about the tag mode thing. That bothers me. As far as, you know what that makes me think of? That makes me think about how dry NBA Playgrounds 2 was. You know, it had like just the dry 13-game season.
Yep.
That you could play, and then it was like this watered down playoffs, and that was it. And then you look at the original NBA Playgrounds, and the original NBA Playgrounds had that amazing map that you went around and played in different cities and different types of players. And you didn't have to use two players from the same team.
Yeah.
You could use players from different teams and put them together. But then the difference, obviously, is NBA Playgrounds AI was piss poor in comparison to NBA Playgrounds 2. The NBA Playgrounds AI, on the original one, is one of the dumbest I've ever seen and played against in a video game. But that's what it kind of reminds me of, is it's like, how do you go from that experience on NBA Playgrounds where you have this map and it's immersive and you have these different venues you're playing at, and one time you're playing at a beach area and then another time it's in a city or something like that, to this just completely dry NBA, this NBA Playgrounds 2 experience. But yeah, no, that does sound. But the thing about NBA Jam 2010 is, if you want to play a quick game, it's great.
Agreed. Yeah.
You and I play a quick game. If you want to jump in, the graphics are great. The boom shakalaka when you first boot up the game. The roster screens. How fun it is to play co-op. All of that stuff. So that's where it shines. But I can agree with you as far as that experience goes.
It is fun to just jump in, and I'm looking forward to playing some more of a Parsec. That'll be a lot of fun to do that as well, because it does work a lot better with that second player, because you are relying on the AI, which often doesn't jump to block in Jam 2010, or it doesn't cut to the hoop in the same way. Much better again in On Fire Edition. Well, again, in On Fire Edition, you can switch between the two players on offense and defense, so it eliminates any problems with the AI there if you have tag mode on. But I really do miss it, which is funny because I used to play Tournament Edition with it off. I used to just let the CPU control the other player, but in 2010 that's just not viable.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up a couple of things too that is pretty exciting. So I connected with TG So Good on Parsec today, and he had never used it before, and I had him set up with all the settings that I recommended. We had an amazing experience with him hosting and with me hosting. We both didn't have lag. We played Blacktop together on the same team on 2K20 with him hosting, and made a couple top 10 plays. And he was just like, I think he said it on the forum and on the Discord, he's like, I'm blown away by this. Parsec is really impressive. And so what he looked up, he was like, I wonder if Parsec can be used with Series X, like Xbox Series X, to stream to a PC, and then somebody else can connect to your PC and you can be playing it with them. And it looks like that's the case, that you can do that. So that's something that I want to do with you. I want to get to the point where I can host Xbox Series X and S games and even Xbox One or whatnot with you. And then if that's the case, if we run into that and one of us has NBA Jam on Fire Edition installed, we could play that. I could go through those modes with you and we could do that together. So just the opportunities with Parsec are endless. And I played a couple more games tonight with Stildo33, who works on the NBA 2K19 rosters. We played a couple NBA 2K19 games tonight. Just a great, fun experience. Some trash talking, all that fun stuff. But yeah, how great will that be if we find out we can play Xbox One, Xbox Series X, S, and S games together and record the highlights. And that means we can boot up NBA Live 15, NBA Live 16, 19, all of these games and play them over Parsec.
Oh,
I mean, that would be really cool.
That would be fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, and there was another thing, too, that we discovered. As you know, I connected with Manny Live on NBA Live 10 using Parsec. And we played a game with me as the host, and it worked amazing on his end. You saw the highlights of the game. And, he was talking about this, and he's like, I just want to let you know that NBA Live 10 should be just as moddable as NCAA Basketball 10. So the stuff that we were doing with NCAA Basketball 10 should be able to do all that stuff with NBA Live 10. So another project, another thing that we can get into, there's a lot of opportunities right now in PC gaming and gaming in general. But what we could do is if he figures that out, how to mod NBA Live 10 the same way, and gives us some instructions on how to do it, I think you and I should do it. I think we should get into making a roster that we can release to the community, and maybe a classic teams roster with actual cyber faces and stuff. That would be really fun.
Oh, that'd be amazing if we can get it. I mean, don't you have a proper Michael Jordan, a proper Julius Erving, not that one that I created? That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be really fun. I think the community would probably eat that up too. They just really like it. Nothing like reviving some of the old games, like bringing them back to life.
It's going to be interesting to see if people want to do that, especially with some of the, of course, we'll be talking about NBA 2K22 this week, but with the news about 2K22 PC, whether people will be sticking with some old games or going back to some other old favorites. And I like that idea. I mean, we can people can talk all day about how some games are outdated or whatnot, but there are a lot of favorites that hold up. 2K11, Live 10, 2K16, 2K17. So people can go back and update those, and yes, they're going to be missing out on some of the details that the new games are going to have, but at the same time, they're familiar favorites, and when we know what we can do with them and create these new experiences with retro mods and current rosters and everything else, why not? We did it for years, and we've kind of got it into the habit of moving on every year. But yeah, there's no harm in going back.
Yeah, the more I go back and play older games, the more I realized why we were so into them at the time.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Like it's a really good feeling too. Like I told you, my brother and I have been playing NBA Live 2004 a lot recently, and it's like there's a reason why we spent this much time with this game. Like there's a reason why we dedicated hours and hours and hours per day at times playing NBA Live 2004 and having so much fun and laughing at stuff that happened on the floor and all of that stuff. Yeah, as far as NBA 2K22, I talked about this a little bit on the thread. I'm not super disappointed with them not bringing 2K22 to PC. I'm a little bit surprised. Next gen to PC. I'm a little surprised, but at the same time, I'm not overly impressed with next gen's NBA 2K. With like NBA 2K21, we talked about it having, the same blueprint with 2K21 as it did on like PS4, PC, and whatnot. If they did pay some extra attention to gameplay, which it's up in the air if they did or not, for NBA 2K22 on the PS4, PC version, Xbox One version, then, and they fix some of the issues that are in there, maybe it will be a big improvement. Maybe it'll be a really good game. So I'm not as disappointed as I thought I would be. Let's put it that way. Like, I feel like there's still opportunity, and one thing that we know for sure is that this community knows how to mod 2K21. They know how to mod the hell out of 2K21. So they'll be able to hit the ground running with NBA 2K22 PC right away.
Oh, undoubtedly, and I think I'm in a similar boat to you as far as my reaction to the 2K22 being a current gen, last gen, prior gen port, whatever you want to call it, same as PS4 and X1 that is. I thought there was a pretty good chance based on what happened with 2K14 and 2K15 for it to be a next gen port, a PS5 or Xbox Series X port. I thought it was certainly a possibility based on history, and that's all we can go on, what companies have done before. I think when Madden came out, and that was a current gen port, or again last gen port, I think that may have prepared me. And I know that's a different company, obviously different game, different company, different publisher, but it still prepared me for that possibility. And I'm a little surprised, but not shocked. I'm not as disappointed as perhaps some people may be, because I was perhaps anticipating it. I've been covering games for a long time now, playing games, covering games for a long time now. I've seen all kinds of disappointment. I know this stuff isn't personal. It's always disappointing, but it's not done to spite the community. I mean, it's certainly a business decision that is to promote the next-gen consoles, but in that respect, it's also, it's not just PC that's going to be missing out on things. It's going to be PS4 and X1 as well. So it's not just spiting the PC community.
Like I said to Tommy, who now is the point forward on the forums, the frustrating aspect for the community is knowing that they could have done it, right?
Yeah.
That they could have brought next-gen 2K to the PC. The PC could handle it, that it wouldn't require everybody to get a new PC, etc. And they also can do cross-play, cross-platform play, and that also isn't coming for NBA 2K22. And the reason the community knows that can be done is because games they play right now, and just games out in general, are doing it. So the frustration comes from the community believing, and in some ways there's some truth to it too, that the PC gamers believing that they've been gypped, that they've been pushed aside, that they've been left behind,
sure,
etc. And I understand that. And I understand that feeling, and I understand, what the modding community has done to promote 2K, whether intentional or not. You have guys like Dom2K who does exclusive NBA 2K modding videos, and he has almost 400,000 subscribers on YouTube, right? That is huge promotion for 2K.
It is, yeah.
That the influencer who showed, and we talked about this on a previous episode, who showed that they had the trampoline animations in there. They did an NBA Street mod for NBA 2K. I mean, that promoted NBA 2K. That promoted the brand, etc. So I totally understand the community's frustration. It would be one thing if they couldn't do it. It'd be one thing if they couldn't bring NBA 2K22 to PC. If there was technical issues, it wouldn't be compatible, all of that stuff. But it'd be another thing. And the same thing with crossplay. If they couldn't do it, as far as making NBA 2K22 crossplay, then that would be a thing. That would be more understanding, but they can. So I understand.
Absolutely. No, I'm totally with them as far as feeling disappointed. I'm not saying anyone shouldn't feel disappointed. I think I tempered my expectations. Cynicism, as the years have gone by, have allowed me to temper my expectations and try not to take things too personally. But yeah, it is certainly disappointing, because we do know, as you say, that the limitations, that it's not a matter of limitations or inability, and that the community would really love it. As far as what we're going to miss out on PC, obviously my NBA, with all its new customization features and the more streamlined experience, with combining it with My League and My League Online and My GM. So that's a blow, obviously. Gameplay-wise, as you touched on, 2K21 Next Gen does feel very similar. Again, for all the talk of being built from the ground up, as we said before, same blueprint. So it didn't feel like the huge jump that I think some people were hoping it would be and trying to make it out to be, quite frankly. So it depends how much of a jump forward 2K22 is, how much we'll feel it. Now, I think I said that in the forum, something along those lines, that the real disappointment or silver lining will be felt when 2K22 comes out and we find out, okay, is it really that much better, or has it just got a different aesthetic and faster loading times? Which, not to downplay those, because people want those. Obviously, there's been mods that have made the PC version of 2K21 look more like next gen, with the filters and whatnot. So, and my NBA is important, but yeah, it hasn't been the jump so far. So yeah, we will see. And of course, the bigger problems for all the versions other things we've talked about before, the grindy mechanics, microtransactions. Not to harp on these issues, but they are still pertinent issues. So all versions of the game are going to be hit by that. But to that end, it'll be interesting to see the price point this year, because remember last year they were talking about it needs to be more expensive because it's new tech and everything, and games haven't gone up in price for years. But if the last gen version, prior gen, PC, whatever, I don't see that going down in price, even though it's not going to be the priority or have the same amount of improvements. So I don't want to hear that financial argument.
I want to just a couple things. This is when you really have to think about your fellow gamer, because for me, all this extra my NBA stuff does nothing for me. Like if I'm playing, it's usually just a straight my league, right? Like where I'm doing like the regular my league stuff. You have your rewards, all of that stuff, your transactions, all of that. So you can do fantasy draft, you can do, custom teams, all of that stuff. Like that for my gaming habits, I'm not missing any functionality that the next gen version is going to have. Right. So, but I totally understand why that would frustrate people who are into that additional functionality where that actually helps them, all of that. So that's when you have to think about your other gamer. So I get it. And I definitely understand. As far as I already pre-ordered the PC version, because one thing that people obviously who listen to the show probably you already know, Andrew and I are collectors. Like, even if I am not going to love the game, I want, and if I don't end up loving it, I want it as part of my collection. Also, if you're a modder, having the PC version of the new game allows you to get assets, right? So even if I don't love NBA 2K22 for PC, there might be some cyber faces that I want to convert to games I like more, or other assets, etc. As far as graphics go, I just want to make a point, and I've shown screenshots side by side of this before. I do not think that next-gen NBA 2K21 looks better, per se, than like NBA 2K19. I'm playing NBA 2K19, and the lighting actually looks more natural and realistic on NBA 2K19. The close-ups at the free throw line look absolutely amazing on that game. And if you do like an instant replay and you're driving baseline or something like that and you're looking at the players just look fantastic. Where if you look at next gen and you're looking at the players at the free throw line, they have a glow on them and a saturation that looks unnatural. So I think the graphics are at the point where they're not an improvement for a lot of people. And at the same time, preference really matters here. So graphics are not making me jump on these next-gen games either yet. Like, they don't impress me to that point. Because, as you know, and we've talked about it before, Xbox One and PS4 are beautiful. Yeah. Like, the games are beautiful on those on those systems.
And also, to that point, games are more than just graphics.
Right, exactly. And games are more than graphics. And I enjoy the NBA 2K19, 2K17, 2K16, 2K15 gameplay more than next-gen NBA 2K21. So, but yeah, I don't think that the next-gen stuff has been enough of a jump, because how often do you see people pointing to a jump in graphics on games like the new MLB The Show that's on next-gen, or NBA 2K21's graphics, all of that stuff on next-gen? You don't see people really talking about it. But remember when when Xbox One first came out in PS4? Do you remember that jump?
Oh, yeah.
You remember how we were talking about the improvement in graphics and the lighting, and people couldn't shut up about it?
OMG trailer, yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's really hard to beat the graphics on Xbox One and PS4 because in so many cases, they were just amazing. So the selling point, as you just kind of mentioned, the selling point needs to be more about the gameplay now, in the functionality, in the modes, and all in the depth and all of that stuff. And I think that's where NBA 2K21 Next Gen still didn't shine. You know what I mean?
And the legacy issues, yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly.
You mentioned the selling points and also pre-ordering the game, and yes, you and I are collectors, so we're going to get it anyway. We're part of the problem, so to speak. But the pre-order bonuses have also been released at the same time as the cover players were announced. We'll get to the cover players shortly. They're pretty much what we've seen in previous years. The standard edition which has Luka Doncic on the cover, of course, 5,000 VC, 5,000 My Team points, 10 My Team promo packs delivered one a week, a boost for each My Career skill type, a boost for each Gatorade boost type, Luka Doncic My Player jersey, and a 95 rated Luka Doncic My Team free agent card. So the standard kind of stuff that's probably not going to make much of a difference with that much VC and My Team points. That's never enough. Not with the current economy in games.
Yeah, it's not. I do want to point out that the NLSC podcast here we were right about Luka Doncic being the cover athlete. We predicted that. We were wrong about this version being next gen. So we were 50%. I'm sorry, people.
Not bad.
We were wrong about the PC version being next gen, but right about Doncic. I actually, and I never do this, and people are going to be like, "You did that for PC? What?" I actually bought the $100 PC version of the game.
Oh, the 75th anniversary edition.
Yeah, and I never do that really. But the reason is that I was talking to my brother about this, and I am going to try to get into My Team again, and I haven't been able to get into it since 2K15, and I'm just going to try to get into it, and I think with that one you get a Sapphire Dirk, a Sapphire Kareem, and a Sapphire Durant for cards when you do that. And it's going to allow me to jump in, and I never do this. I never spend the higher, because I actually like really working for it, but it was just something I did as a gut feeling. Like I'm going to do this. But I want to be able to jump in with those guys, see how they feel on the court, better players on the court right away, and see if I enjoy the mode again. So I'll let the listeners know how that goes when it's actually released. But yeah, I actually bought the $100 one this time around.
The funny thing is, last year I bought the standard edition on PC. I had the Kobe Bryant Mother Forever edition on PS4, so I could have the PS5 upgrade. But I got the standard edition on PC. But I seem to get the special edition perks for my pre-order somehow. I wasn't complaining, but somehow I did.
See, now look at that, and I just spent that extra money. Unbelievable.
This year it won't happen. You drive this soon.
Yeah, but anyway, so you were talking about that stuff. I'm not somebody who's going to go into My Career or whatever, or go into the city. I'm not going to use that stuff. But the extra VC and bonuses that come for My Team with that extra pack is worth it. In a way, if you want to just jump in and see how it feels and all of that stuff. So, yeah, I don't regret it. I actually kind of felt guilty, though, spending that much money on the PC version, to be honest.
Well, how many games a year do you buy, really? Or is it more the principle of giving 2K that much money?
That's more of what it is. Like, I don't feel bad spending that much on a video game, but I feel bad about giving 2K that much money.
No, fair
I'm pretty good with my money, and I'm not a crazy spender or anything like that, so it's not really about that. But yeah, like you said, it's more about giving 2K that extra money.
So that 75th anniversary edition has Dirk, it has Kevin Durant, it has Kareem on the cover, so that leak was accurate. Really good artwork, those covers, actually.
I loved it. I got to be honest with you. I love the Doncic artwork, the Candace Parker cover for the GameStop exclusive. Just great artwork. Dirk, Kareem, and Durant, the way they did the more close-ups, like shoulders and up, and where one's looking off to the side, the other one's looking off to the other side, all that stuff. Like, I think that's really cool. Like
a bust portrait kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's really enjoyable. I think they knocked it out of the park with the artwork. Let's put it that way.
It's different. It's different to just going to Getty Images, paying for rights to a Getty Images and putting it on there, isn't it? So 75th anniversary edition, as you said, Sapphire, Kareem, Dirk, and Durant, My Team cards, 10 My Team tokens, 10,000 rather My Team points, MT, 100,000 VC, 22 My Team promo packs. You receive 10 at launch and then 3 per week for 4 weeks. A Diamond Jordan shoe card, coach card for My Team, 10 boosts for My Career, 10 boosts for the Gatorade boosts, 4 cover athlete t-shirts for My Player backpack and arm sleeve. Exciting, what a fit. All sarcasm aside, and a custom designed skateboard for My Player. Which this is the other thing, is they gave you a skateboard in the first year of 2K21 in the city to get around, which you really need because of the size of it. I guarantee you that you need to get that 75th anniversary edition this year to get a skateboard for free. That's my prediction that I'm making now. I'm guaranteeing it, like Charles Barkley. So we'll see. He did guarantee the Bucks would win, and as we record this, they're 1 win away. So who knows? But I mean, that's the thing they do, is that they put things in for free and then they take them away the next year. That's happened a lot in my career. I can attest to that. But I mean, it's a pretty good starter pack, obviously, for both my career and my team. The only thing that I've noticed that, I mean, 22 My Team promo pack sounds great, Derek, especially getting the 10 at launch and then 3 per week for 4 weeks. It certainly can, in theory, help you build the team. But in practice, in my experience, it is way too easy with barely a collection to get double after double in those promo packs. And that sucks.
I don't think I know we talked about this as well. I don't think they should be treating these packs like real card packs, like in real life. You know how like you buy like a set of 1991 Skybox?
Yep.
Maybe I'm the only one buying that today. Who knows? But a 1991 box of Skybox, and you always have this separate pile for the duplicates, right? Like that's standard with every big box of cards that you get, or like any set. I don't understand why they have to treat it that way, and I know that it's just a way for them to make more money.
Oh yeah,
really, right? But it is a shame that they treat it like a real box of cards, where you can get duplicates, and like you said, the duplicates seem to come far more often than they should.
Well, first of all, you're not the only one who would buy those cards. If I could get them more cheaply on eBay, they used to be about $2 Australian per pack a few years back, and I got a bunch of them. I had a pack opening with my cousin when he came down to visit. A lot of fun, a lot of nostalgia in doing that. So I would definitely do that if I could get my hands on some cheap cards or boxes. And second, absolutely right. And in fact, I did a video a few years back comparing My Team cards, My Team packs to real card packs. I think it was 2K17 I did that for. And you get way less out of the same amount of cards, basically, of opening those packs compared to My Team packs and real card packs. I don't think I got a single double in those 2 card packs I got, but got several in the packs I opened in My Team. So even the odds aren't like a real cards. And I suppose that's done for balance, obviously, and yes, as you noted, to make money through microtransactions. That's My Team is their big moneymaker after all. But it just doesn't feel... Why bother having the packs? There's no the value. In fact, you think they'd actually make more money if they had more value in the packs. I've said it before. If they offered and then said, okay, if you give us $10, $20 and you will get every single Michael Jordan we release, you will get that guaranteed. I have to admit, I'd consider paying that, but I'm not going to put any money into something with random odds, not loot box mechanics. Guaranteed content, sure, I'll think about that. But loot boxes, no thank you.
I was really disappointed to see NBA Playgrounds 2 adopt that same thing. NBA Playgrounds 2 packs, you just got duplicates constantly.
Yeah.
And your reward during it for a duplicate was like nothing. You know what I mean? Like they were like, oh, you got a duplicate, and then they'd give you just like a couple 100 points or something that you can't really do anything with. And yeah, I was disappointed with that.
It's the same thing with My Team. You can trade in cards, immediately sell them for upwards of... Even the best cards kind of only go for a few thousand MT, which if you put them on the auction house, they can get up to hundreds of thousands or even millions, especially on PC where everyone's hacking and buying MT. And that's the other thing about My Team that is unfortunately a problem is the economy is completely broken. Wrote an article about it. Is that you've got, because of the MT resellers, because of the hacking on PC as well, you've got these ridiculous prices in the auction house, and the rewards you're getting for games or selling cards or even auctioning off cards, usually, legitimately, you can't compete with that. And they're not really doing anything to address it. And I have heard rumors, maybe unsubstantiated, but they're very interesting, piqued my interest to hear it, is that I've heard rumors that 2K... funds or is somehow involved in some of the MT reselling, which supposedly it's black market, but there is a rumor that they're involved. I don't know. I'm not going to say that it's absolutely true, but when I heard that, I thought, oh, that is intriguing.
Yeah, that is pretty wild.
If true.
Exactly. I will say this though. Some of my best times with last gen 2K playing by myself anyway, was playing my team on NBA 2K15. I'd like the game to be sound from a gameplay standpoint, and for my team from a functionality standpoint, in order for me to enjoy that mode again. And I think it really comes down to, did they fix some of those player movement issues, which I'm not holding my breath, trust me. Those player movement issues and the canned animations issues. And is the game playable with default sliders? Because as you know, in my team, you can't change them.
Exactly.
So that's really killed the mode for me too the last few years, is you jump in and you can improve the player movement. You can improve the player acceleration. You can't lower body up sensitivity. You can't, mess with the movement sliders for with and without ball and all of that stuff. So you get into the mode and your players are running in the mud, and they're getting like completely attached to each other wherever you go. There's all this sucking in and all that stuff. And it's like, this is not fun.
No.
Like, I'm just not having fun with this. The game really has to be strong at its base for my team to be fun.
And the same with my career, obviously, as well. When you can't change it, when you're relying on the tuning of the default sliders and any other tweaks they push through with patches and other tuning fixes that come through through the in-game updates, then you are at their mercy.
Yeah, exactly. I saw some comments that were a little bit upset. There were some people upset about Candace Parker being a cover athlete. I just want to say that the WNBA is referenced in the game. They have a WNBA mode. They have the season mode now for the WNBA. The WNBA is the women's NBA. It's still part of it's professional basketball, women's professional basketball. It's a GameStop exclusive cover, so she's not a main cover athlete. Not that would be a huge problem anyway. But I think that people need to realize that the WNBA needs this promotion. And I think you could agree with that. I think that the WNBA, it's much needed promotion for the women that play, for that league, all of that stuff. So I'm glad that even though it's just a GameStop exclusive cover, I think it's great. I also think that the WNBA could have its own video game. And
it's kind of like a soft launch within 2K21, I suppose.
Right, that's the way I look at it. If at any point the WNBA does pick up steam or popularity, maybe they will approach a WNBA basketball game. I think it's a huge missed opportunity that back in the late 90s when the WNBA was first formed and it took off and you had those great Houston Comets teams, the Los Angeles Sparks teams and all of that stuff with the Lisa Leslies and the Cynthia Coopers and Cheryl Swoops and all that stuff. It is a shame that nobody jumped on the opportunity to make a WNBA game at the time, because the WNBA, the younger crowd doesn't get it. It was popular in those first few years.
Oh yeah,
when it first came out, and there was a lot of buzz around it.
Big deal, yeah,
really big deal. But yeah, I think the WNBA even now could have its own game. But yeah, that's just don't get upset about the Candace Parker GameStop exclusive cover, because that's kind of ridiculous.
There were definitely some comments that it's the internet, let's put it that way. So I wasn't surprised. As you said, GameStop exclusive, special edition, WNBA 25th Anniversary Edition. I forgot it was the 25th anniversary of the WNBA, in fact. Pre-order bonuses for that Candace Parker edition, incidentally, same as the standard edition. Looking at that, though, because that's obviously going to be the standard edition of current gen as well, and current gen has WNBA content, but it doesn't have the W, which is the career mode. It doesn't have My WNBA, which is the franchise mode. It has a standalone season mode for WNBA and exhibition play and roster editing, but it doesn't have that extra stuff that was added in next gen. It makes me wonder, are they actually going to try and port any of that stuff across to current gen? And I'm not that confident of that.
They made a comment that said, and this is true, their comment about it is true, but do I think that they've spent as much time as I'd hope they'd spend time on the gameplay? Probably not. But they made a comment, they said, we wanted to spend extra time and attention on the PS4, PC, and Xbox One versions, because that's what most, and I believe most was capitalized, like all MOST, all of it, that most gamers are still on those platforms, right? So that is where I hold out a little bit of, where I have a little bit of hope that they did make some, like you said, either moving some of the functionality and features of next gen to last gen, but also, from a gameplay perspective, did they maybe they made improvements to it that will really help the feel and flow of the gameplay. And because, like they said, most gamers don't have the new consoles. Most people are still on those other ones. So that's where when I told you that I wasn't like completely disappointed yet, it's because I still think that there is a possibility that we get a stronger game than NBA 2K21.
No, that's fair. I agree. There's also a cross-gen digital bundle, which includes both PS4 and PS5 and X1, Xbox Series X of NBA 2K22. Interestingly, on the pre-order site, it doesn't mention the 100,000 VC. It has all the other same pre-order bonuses as the 75th anniversary edition. I would think that it's kind of tailored towards the cross-gen play of my team, because once again, progression is going to have cross-progression for both platforms in the same console family, which we talked about that before, whether we wondered whether that was going to be a one-time thing, but obviously with them still putting some emphasis on last gen, and again, this is maybe another sign that they are going to do that they're going to still be supporting that platform a little bit longer, and they're still going to, they understand that people are still upgrading and haven't had the opportunity yet, so they're offering that dual package, that is a digital-only package to get that, but that's also available to pre-order, once again, just on those two PlayStation or Xbox consoles. But yeah, interestingly, it doesn't mention the 100,000 VC. Maybe just a misprint, but in any case, that's the information that I've reproduced at this time. But I am glad, Derek, that they are doing that cross progression again.
Yeah, I mean, how many people do you think are going to take advantage of that? It's disappointing the PC version isn't included, because the PC version is separate. So that is a little bit disappointing. I think you could agree, because it would have been nice to be able to take advantage of the get the PC version and the next gen version.
Sure. Well, I mean, if you listen to that gentleman on, I use the word gentleman very kindly, on Twitter, apparently it's only geeks that play the PC version, and they need to just leave the game to consoles. And we need to go play NBA Live on PC and leave the glorious 2K to the console users. That was one of the most ridiculous.
He called us nerd ASS PC players. So we're nerds, the people, the super talented modding community, the people who put out some of the best gameplay content around, the best gameplay content around. The guys like Dom2K who have, close to 400K subscribers based on his the modding content that he shows and videos and all this stuff. He's a nerd. So I guess we're all, yeah, just that's ridiculous. And I'm seeing more and more comments like that, and it's so stupid. He didn't respond.
The whole PC versus console thing, and as somebody who's grown up playing both on PC and on consoles every generation, I just find it a really ridiculous battle, because both platforms have their advantages and disadvantages, obviously, and there's a reason why I've played games on one or the other or both, but it's kind of like Star Wars fans making fun of Star Trek fans and calling them geeks. I mean, it's kind of like the Spider-Man pointing meme, is it not? I mean, you're playing a basketball video game. We're playing a basketball video game. We can't call each other geeks here or nerds.
Well, he did that too, because he goes, well, they're all hackers. Like, he goes, they shouldn't even release on the PC because they're all hackers. And like I said to him in the comment, I was like, first off, your attitude sucks. That's how I started it.
Yeah.
And second off, how about you think about the other modes and the other, why not think about the modes that you're not playing, the functionality that you're not using? What about those gamers? What about the modders? What about all of that content? What about the modders that they've ripped from the PC, from the NLSC to go work for 2K because of that work they were doing on PC, right? Like, there's a lot of different things that, what about the ideas that the modding community has brought forward that have been implemented in the game that this person is enjoying today, right? So, like, there's so many different things that factor in. And again, take a drink. I'm saying big picture. he's not thinking big picture. He's not thinking. He's being selfish. That's what he's doing. He's only thinking about the mode that he plays and the issues that he has with it, and he's not thinking about any of the other gamers.
I mean, look, hackers are a problem on PC. Nobody denies that. I mentioned that in this very episode. In fact, talking about how hacking affects my team with all the ridiculous amounts in the auction house, the ridiculous prices in the auction house. But no, you don't just stop releasing on PC, as you said. You've got the other modes as well. It's not just all about online. It's a lot of, in fact, probably a lot of PC gamers, those that that aren't hacking or playing online and trying to go up against the hackers, are playing My League or playing exhibition games or My Career or whatever, just the NBA side of that, and modding, and enjoying the mods. So, I mean, there are the modded controllers that are ruining the online scene in the console space. Does that, maybe we should just release on PC and just not have the console, you know? I mean,
how about we just put a 2K all together? No,
yeah, let's not play basketball games anymore because look, they can go wrong. So let's not play. Such an asinine point of view. It doesn't surprise me that he didn't respond to you because well, you asked him to think, so he probably just blue screened when you asked him to think. But yeah, that was such an asinine. Like you said, his attitude sucks.
Well, he wants to grow. He has a YouTube channel, and he goes, "What are our goals going to be this year?" And he. It's been like 5 months since he made that post, and he's had like 3 subscribers to his YouTube channel, right? He has like 27 subscribers, like nobody's following him, all of this stuff. And I said, you know what? You may be better off if you were on PC posting modded content or posting gameplay that you recorded from your PC and all of that stuff. Maybe your follower count would go up. You know what I mean? Maybe if you got into some of that cool content, maybe you'd get a better following, etc. But these people don't think about that stuff. It's the completely selfish thinking, and what they're only thinking about the mode that they enjoy playing, or the ones that they want to play and they're frustrated with. But yeah, I mean, he wants to be an influencer, and not understanding the amazing amount of influencers out there that do modded and PC content. Come on. Like, you'd have to be dumb to insult that community. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
It's just dumb tribalism, dumb, yeah, just all around dumb. So the other news about NBA 2K22, that September 10th release date is accurate. That is for all platforms, all PC and all the consoles as well. No Google Stadia edition this year, but it will be coming out on Switch. Not really any surprises there. Most developers are abandoning Stadia. Yeah, so that's not shocking at all. Yes, I think that's pretty much all the news we have for the moment for 2K22. Obviously, the previous season is going to be getting underway in full swing sometime in August, one would imagine. That's when we'll start seeing teaser trailers and gameplay blogs and everything. And I miss the days when we used to get big, long preview seasons with all kinds of excitement. But that being said, you know, I'm still eager to see what they're coming out with. And look, I'm always hoping for the best. I will admit to cynicism. Maybe that's just me being a grumpy old man. And I'd like to think it's from being around the block a few times and knowing what to expect. But at the same time, I want good news, and I'm hoping for it as well.
Well, there's one more important news story is there's no demo this year.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah, so we don't have a demo, which I think is frustrating for a lot of people because it's another case of them saying, well, 2K isn't being transparent. As far as like not only are we not getting like a preview season, really, we're also not going to be able to test the game before we buy it. All of that stuff. It's just another way for them to get more pre-orders. It's another way for them to make more sales. How many people actually return the game after they buy it if they don't like it? Maybe they're taking advantage of that. So I think having no demo is not a good look, to be completely honest. Will it hurt their sales at the end of the day? Absolutely not, and they know that. But it is unfortunate for gamers to not be able to jump on the sticks and see if they, you know, and make a more educated decision on purchasing, right?
I mean, it's neither here nor there when it comes to PC, because PC isn't, except for 2K9, has never had a demo, and that was the first year it was coming to PC. So it was kind of like, can you see if your computer can run it? And suddenly all the people that were wanting a at the time, next-gen version of NBA Live realized that their Pentium 3s from 2002 couldn't run an Xbox 360/PS3 port. That was some of the case in the community, but nevertheless, that's the only time we've got a demo of 2K on PC. We've had different ones, the Prelude and the My Player Builders, rather, in the last couple of years. And they've been fun to mess around with, and they give you a kind of a glimpse of the game. Of course, they also juice the demos so that because when you're beating a game, you feel good, and that's something a lot of people don't realize, is that judging that quality of the game on whether you can beat it easily and pick up and play it and beat it. I think it gives you that. It pumps you up for that game in a way that's not necessarily honest, especially when they do nerf those nerf player abilities in the actual final version. And of course, I know some of it is beta testing on the part of the demo, but I do think that's an issue that hasn't got enough attention in recent years. How some of the demos have just really been nerfed and not really been accurate or much of a representation. But that being said, even going back to the 360 and PS3, the 2K demos have always been a bit disappointing, taking out play calling, taking out commentary, stripping it down, and not really showing the best. I mean, they'd become the top-selling game at that point, so it didn't really matter. But yeah, 2K demos have always been kind of disappointing anyway, I suppose. But at the same time, not getting one at all is still a blow.
That's what happened with NBA 2K21, though, the demo. Remember they said after everybody had already played the demo and it had been out there for a little bit, they admitted that the demo was from a very early build. Like, that's why it felt so much like NBA 2K20. Because right. It was from... It felt eerily similar. It's like, wait a minute, this feels so much like 2K20. I made some notes of areas that I felt like it had improved upon NBA 2K20 a little. And then what ended up happening is we ended up getting NBA 2K21, and the gameplay for NBA 2K21 had far more issues than the demo did.
Yes.
And that's always super frustrating. And that's almost how I felt about NBA Live 19 too, is when we got the demo. Remember how much fun I was having with it? I'm like, this feels really good. And my brother was having fun with it too. And then all of a sudden, we ended up getting the game on release, and it didn't feel the same. And then they patched it again, and then it really didn't feel the same. So yeah, that's always frustrating.
And like the developer blogs, like other things, the lack of transparency and honesty, it wears you down, and you can't help but feel cynical. But at the same time, I don't want to feel too cynical. I want to take things with a sensible grain of salt, if you will. And of course, we'll be covering the previous season and talking about it here on the podcast, hoping for the best, but realizing that they're going to be pushing some things. They may not be completely honest about certain things. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. Expecting the worst, hoping for the best, not entirely disappointed that we're not getting the next gen on PC for NBA 2K22. In fact, it could open up a lot of opportunity. But like I said, I really hope they did something with the gameplay that makes it a little bit more enjoyable. Let's put it that way.
Speaking of great expectations and whatnot, obviously NBA Live is something we've talked about a lot, and the future of that series is something we've talked about a lot on the show before. We've heard some things in recent times that don't sound very good for the series, and obviously there's been no announcements. We talked about the potential announcement on July 20th, although now looking at the wording of that, of what they actually said, it may not be a returning series, it may be something for an existing series. We may have misinterpreted that, but we're not the only ones, just to put it out there. But whatever happens, there's been a very interesting development that we've seen in the last couple of days, that they were talking about I forget who it was, but somebody was talking about the endorsement deals that LeBron has and the money that he makes off endorsements, and it mentioned that one of the companies he's signed with is EA, and that kind of piques your interest, because the only game you would think that he'd be involved in would be NBA Live. So at the moment, it's easy to read into anything and everything when it comes to the NBA Live, especially when we want to see it return and be that viable competitor in the basketball gaming space. But that's interesting, Derek.
Yeah, I did find it interesting. I think that people got to remember, though, that EA Sports is not just basketball, and that LeBron's involved in a lot of different things in different sports and whatnot, and different. I don't know if he's involved in EA Sports in a different capacity. I know probably people probably think that's wild, but if you remember, he's also involved in baseball, he's involved in football. I believe at one point he was involved in soccer, all of that stuff. So just to keep that in mind, just to our listeners, as far as what that means for EA Sports, I don't think it means anything. They're either going to make a game or they're not. And like you said, we were wrong about the announcement. It looks like we misinterpreted that, but we weren't the only ones.
So I just double-checked, and LeBron is actually part owner of Liverpool Football Club. I mean...
And the Red Sox.
Right? He could...
Yeah, not Sports is making baseball video games, but he is part owner of the Red Sox, too.
Exactly, yeah.
I guess.
I mean, maybe he appears in FIFA as a special player, for a live event or something. I'm not sure if they do live events the same way that NBA Live does, but the same kind of thing, a special challenge mode, perhaps. Maybe he's there as a special character, perhaps.
Yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of different things that could factor into that. I'm surprised that it was listed on the front page, I think, for him. It was like one of his biggest endorsements or whatnot. So, yeah, I'll have to look into it a little bit more. I don't think it means anything, personally, but I do see why somebody would look at that and they would go, whoa, wait a minute. You know what I mean? What does this mean for NBA Live? But I think
it's intriguing. I mean, it catches your eye if nothing else. And they've also, a couple of people have noticed there are still some job listings for EA Madrid that suggest that some kind of basketball title is still in production. But perhaps until we hear something more concrete, we just have to assume nothing is coming, which is a shame. It's very depressing to think that. But until we hear more, we can sort of shelve that idea, perhaps. But at the same time, maybe not completely slam the door on it. I don't know. We hear conflicting things.
Maybe we should apply, Andrew.
Maybe. I don't think I can get out of Australia very quickly at the moment with the situation, but nevertheless, I can work from home if I get a faster internet connection. If I get a faster internet connection, we can have a better parsec experience.
Right, then you wouldn't even want to work there because you'd just be playing with me. So,
I mean, work in the game industry or play parsec with my friend Derek. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Exactly. As long as I don't have to play against the 2005 Bulls every time we play, then I'm in.
Well, I mean, if you want to use another team, if you want to take the 2005 Spurs, 2005 Suns, that might... then again, if Nocioni can just go off the way he did, who knows?
Yeah. You look like Michael Jordan in that game.
Looked like the white Larry Bird, as Peter Griffin would say. So that's all the basketball gaming news we have this week, but another exciting announcement for a lot of people, Derek, this week, the Steam Deck.
Exciting for people who don't look at the price and immediately collapse.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. So I'm looking into this, and my brother actually might get this, and I'll explain why. So Steam Deck is basically a handheld game with a small, I think a 7-inch screen. Looks very nice as a controller. So the screen's in the middle. Just like any like Game Gear thing that you would see and whatnot. Boy, I just aged myself saying Game Gear, huh? And basically what it is you can play your entire Steam library, Steam game library on this handheld. Drawback is obviously you wouldn't be able to use your mods on PC from PC because it wouldn't be connected to the computer. But you could play, whatever games you have in your Steam library. But here's the catch: the $400 version, it's $399.99. Only has 64 gigabytes of memory. That means that you could probably not play many games, including like the newer 2Ks because they're like 100 gigabytes to install. But you wouldn't be able to play many of the new games just because they take up too much space, or you could only have one or two games installed at once on the Steam Deck to play it.
Yeah, that's a huge drawback. I mean, we talk about the consoles having limited space, but I mean, Mortal Kombat 11 for PC is over 100 gigabytes.
Yeah, so here's the other catch. So you're like, okay, well, how much is it going to cost me to upgrade space? So in order to get 256 gigabytes of memory, which is still not a lot, $529.99. In order to up that to 512 gigabytes of space, which you could say, you know what, I could put 8 to 10 games on here, maybe. And if you're doing some smaller games, like maybe you download old Final Fantasy VII or something like that, that only takes like 10 gigabytes or less, then you could have a lot more games. But the 512 gigabyte version is $649.99. So $650 is really what you would need to spend to have the space to, have many different games installed. So I think that's insane.
By the time you're getting to that, you might as well buy a gaming laptop or put it towards a gaming laptop.
Right, but the whole handheld. And, it's its own controller and all this stuff.
Sure.
My brother's thinking about it because he works very long days, and it would be something where he could bring to work, and while he's eating lunch or on his lunch, he could play something from his Steam library. And I think that's a really cool thing. And if he has the money, I think he should do it. But that is a lot of money for a handheld gaming system. It's released, I want to say, Q2 of 2022. So you can pre-order it right now for $5 or reserve your copy or something like that.
I mean, people are excited about it. They're already sharing memes from the from Toy Story 1 where Andy is dropping Woody and holding the one where he's dropping Woody and holding Buzz. But they've photoshopped the Steam Deck and Switch in there in place of Woody and Buzz. So people are already saying that it's going to compete heavily with the Switch and possibly replace it. I mean, the Switch, the Nintendo's big selling point is always their first party properties, Mario, Zelda, etc. So, I mean, if you're really into Nintendo, I don't think it's going to really. If you have the money and are enthusiastic about gaming, you might get both. But I don't think people. If you're big on Nintendo, I don't think the Steam Deck is going to replace it. Basically.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain advantages probably about having a handheld if it's powerful enough. I mean, you're playing on a much smaller screen, so I'm guessing that certain games could possibly run better, wouldn't you say? Possibly on the Steam Deck than they do on one of your bigger screens at a higher resolution.
Quite possibly, yeah.
Possibly. But anyway, yeah, like you said, I don't think it's going to be replacing anything Nintendo-related at any point, especially with those space issues. I think people are going to realize pretty quick that you can't do much for the $400 version. That's right. I just said that you can't do much with the $400 version. You can't. So I think that's I think that's going to be its biggest downfall. I'm not saying it's not going to be popular, but that's definitely going to hurt.
Remains to be seen because the Steam machine was supposed to revolutionize things, and it kind of petered out.
Petered out fast. You never really heard anything about it after that initial kickoff. There just wasn't buzz about it. I don't hear anybody. There's only one person in the community, the NLSC community, or somebody that subscribed to me on YouTube. There's only one person that I've seen bring it up.
So yeah, probably maybe on your brother's wish list, but maybe not ours. Maybe not yours and mine.
Right. That might be a little bit too expensive of a birthday gift too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I may not spend $650 on. I love him to death, but that's just a lot of money for a birthday.
I mean that's birthday and Christmas, right? At least for 2 years. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean maybe 2. Yeah, exactly. Maybe 2 or 3 years worth. Yeah.
So before we wrap up today, we wanted to respond to some comments to our last show, and we always love hearing from our listeners, Derek. We had a couple of great questions in the mailbag last week about the peak years of gaming and underrated gameplay improvements, and got a bit of feedback on that and some other ideas, and that was cool to hear as well.
Yeah, no, I love seeing that stuff. We welcome good or bad feedback, constructive criticism as well, and whatnot. But we usually get really positive comments about the show, so I appreciate that.
So shout out to KidCash202 on Twitter, of course. Talks about the addition of being able to change defensive matchups. Not sure which game was the first to allow it. Is playing Bulls versus Blazers, actually, and Cleveland versus Chicago, and has to make sure that Elo is in the same positional slot as Jordan to ensure that he's guarding him. Yeah, that's another one of those things, little defensive settings like that. Came along in the 90s, but you go back far enough, and you do miss little things like that.
Yeah. I think that I love the ability on the newer 2Ks to just go into defensive matchups and say, you know what, Shaq's killing me. I need to put somebody else on him. Or one of my favorite ones is whenever you play 6'9" Magic Johnson, whenever you play the Lakers on the newer video games, if you don't switch your shooting guard or small forward onto him, you're destroyed. you're finished. You're done. And the same thing often happens too if you're playing against Penny, who is about 6'7", I believe. If you don't put somebody on a bigger person on Magic and you don't switch that defensive matchup, you're cooked in most cases. So yeah, that's definitely another underrated aspect of the newer games, is being able to do that.
And along those same lines, being able to make those adjustments to strategy and defensive matchups and everything during the loading, before the game actually loads and you're into gameplay, because back in the day you would have to pause the game, a tip-off, and make all those adjustments. Now you can make a few before the game starts, and that's convenient. Things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's certain things that are really underrated that people don't talk about. Even just the screens that say, here's your first scoring option, here's your second scoring option, here's your third scoring option. What do you want your team to be able to do? I mean, what do you want their direction to be? Do you want them to crash the offensive boards more often? Do you want them to get out and run more often? All of that stuff. Those team options that you didn't have in the older games are really underrated. It's really nice to go through them and set them up and watch how your team, how they play different on the floor once you make those changes.
Absolutely. And the second comment from Kid Cash, the other improvement, the addition that's been of the underrated possibly, the normalized SimStats option, something he wanted since started playing seasons in NBA games, kind of came in around about 2K17 from his memory, which I think is about right. Yeah, that's another big thing. I mean, I'm that person who plays 12-minute quarters. I believe you are as well, most of the time. And I even with that option, I have trouble taking it down to less than 12 minutes, unless, of course, I'm playing a game, as we've been doing over Parsec. 8 minutes seems to work very well for those games. But in solo games, franchise games that I've played solo, it's great to have that option there. I'm so glad to see it. And I might even make use of it moving forward as I try to get back into some franchise gaming, and possibly as soon as 2K22. I've been saying that for years, but I feel like I'm finally positioned to return to my roots as a franchise gamer. But that is a great option to have, that you can... Because that was always the option, is that you'd want to have the realistic-looking stats, but if nothing else, the minutes would look wrong. So if you're a stickler for being able to go through all the stat screens in franchise, as I was and a lot of people are, to have that accuracy and that adjustment, that normalized stats for the shorter quarters up to 12 minutes, or whatever you want, but usually most people will do 12 minutes, obviously. Yeah, that's awesome as well. And kind of underrated, I agree.
Well, there's actually two other things, too, that made me think of. Number one, Simcast. That's another new addition to the NBA 2K games over the last few years, and over the last 5 years or so. I want to say since 2K17, maybe. I don't think 2K16 had it. But the ability to, for those who don't have that much time, or they don't want to completely, exit a game or whatever, like, they have that Simcast option. And the Simcast option allows them to watch the action almost like you would on ESPN play-by-play, right? Like when you go on ESPN.com and they show, like, it's a rebound by this person and a shot by this person, and you can watch it kind of like taking place that way as opposed to watching the game. So the Simcast option is fantastic, and I've seen that people really like that as well. The other thing too that came out, and this is really underrated, and I can't believe I didn't bring this up on the last podcast, is the ability to save your game and return to it during the game. People think that the kids now probably think that had been in games for years, like the younger kids now. But there was a point where if you're in a My League game, or excuse me, an association game or a franchise game in the past, whether it be NBA Live or NBA 2K, you couldn't save your game in the middle of a game and then return to it. Like, it's amazing. So my brother and I, if he gets home late and he's tired and we want to he can't play for that long, we'll play like a quarter or a quarter and a half of a Legends game, and we'll save it. And then we'll just load up that save and start from that point again at a future date. That we didn't always have that.
No.
And that's really cool.
When you think back to the 90s, World League Basketball / NCAA Basketball on Super Nintendo has that with its battery backup. Super Dunk Shot doesn't. It uses a password system. NBA Live 98, 99, and 2000 for PC do. That was the last time that Live had it, so it's over 20 years since Live has had it on a fairly primitive, by today's standards, tech in a game. compared to what we have now. So useful being able to save and restore. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I think that there's so many different other things that we could bring up. But we're talking specifically about underrated. So that's another thing that's not talked about enough.
It's not, and it's one of those things that was always on the wish list after it disappeared from NBA Live. Should also mention, of course, NBA Live brought in sim intervention in Live 2005, where it went quarter by quarter, and you could jump in at any time. Later games added scenarios where it would say that a player is about to get a triple-double. Do you want to jump in with 4 minutes left and try and get them the triple-double, or you're down 2 with 2 minutes left? Do you want to jump in and try and finish the game in gameplay? And in NBA Live 08 on 360 and PS3, they expanded that to, much like the Simcast that 2K has now, play-by-play, and you could speed it up and slow it down and watch it play-by-play and then jump in at any time as well to intervene. So, yeah, it's been in games for quite a while, but it's sort of flown under the radar. Instant replay editing, obviously, in NBA Live is quite underrated as well. So, I mean, we could almost do a whole show on that, but shout out to Molly who suggested that question, sending that question. Talks his suggestions for underrated and unappreciated improvements, chase down blocks and the ability to make shots very quickly off the inbounds, which is and so forth, and off the pass when there's very little time left, not getting stuck in those animations. Depends on the game, of course. Also responded to the other question about the peak years and picked a peak couple of years, narrowed it down, said 2009, 2010, so to encompass NBA Live 10 on Fire Edition, NBA Jam 2010, 2K11, NCAA Basketball 10, the college games as well, NBA 2K10 with the first edition of My Player. So kind of that turn of the decade there, 2009, 2010, 2011. Yeah, very strong time as well.
Think about all the entertainment that you just named. Like all of those titles, how much entertainment you can get out of those.
Fantastic, yeah.
Yeah, you could still today have endless hours of entertainment just with those titles from those 2 years. So I absolutely agree with him, 100%. That's not a bad. That if you could only choose those titles, that's definitely not a bad time to go back to.
So thank you for those comments and keeping the discussion going. We love to see that. And of course, if you'd like to contribute to future mailbags that we'll be doing, podcast at nba-live.com. Hit us up in the forum or any of our socials. Topics, questions, however you want to put them to us. Yeah, we'd love to talk about what you want to hear us talk about when it comes to basketball gaming. So we love doing the mailbag, Derek. So yeah, we encourage everybody to hit us up moving forward. But with that being said, that has brought us to the end of episode number 384 of the NLSC podcast. As always, we thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed listening to us talk about basketball gaming, the latest news of NBA 2K22, of course. Now we throw it over to you. Let us know your comments on this week's show and everything we talked about. The NLSC podcast comes out every week on Sundays on the NLSC, of course, which is nba-live.com. We're also on all the major podcatching apps and platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, to name just a few. On those platforms, search for NLC Podcast, look for our logo, and that will be us. And as always, if you feel inclined to leave us a hopefully positive review on Apple Podcasts, we'd certainly welcome that as well. And as we are wrapping up here, Derek, where can we find you on socials, and any other final words for our listeners this week?
Thanks for tuning in with us, tuning into us every single week, and listening to us to discuss basketball video games, but also getting involved in the conversation, whether it's questions for the mailbag or comments about the show and stuff we've talked about. We just really appreciate it, and it's just added motivation for us to continue as well. You can tune into Holding Court with D for 3. That podcast is on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, Amazon Audible, CLNS Media, all different platforms. We'll be recording a new episode soon. Andrew will once again be my guest as well. I'm most active on Twitter. You can tune into me on there at D for384. I'm also on YouTube, D for 3, where I've been a lot more active uploading real NBA content as well as virtual hardwood content. I'm a team member over on the NLSC, and I'm also on Instagram, D for384.
In a tribute to Kendrick Perkins, in future episodes of Holding Court, I'm going to change my opinion every episode. Carry on.
Oh my God. No, let's not even bring up Kendrick Perkins on the NLSC podcast. How about that? He drives me nuts.
Fair call. But as for me, you can find me in the forum. I am Andrew, as I said at the top of the show, and Andrew NLSC on Twitter. The NLSC is on Twitter and Facebook at the NLSC. We're on Instagram, NLSC Basketball. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/NBA Series Center, and of course give a look to the NLSC itself, nb-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. But yes, that's all for this week, so thank you once again for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.